A Christmas Carol. Chapter 1, Marley's Ghost. Marley was dead, to begin with. There's no doubt about that. He was dead as a doornail. This must be understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I am going to tell you. Marley and Scrooge were business partners once, but then Marley died, and has been dead these last 7 Christmas Eves, and their business now belonged to Scrooge. Scrooge had presided over the burial preparations of his former partner, and was so hesitant to pay the undertaker that once he had, he took the 2 pennies over Marley's eyes as reimbursement. Scrooge, yes, Scrooge was very stingy indeed. He was also a heartless old man. He was a tight-fisted hand to the grindstone, Scrooge was. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. He was secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating, grimacing voice. Yes, a frosty rime was on his head, and his eyebrows and wiry chin. Now, once upon this Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy at his business. It was cold, bleak, and biting weather, and in Scrooge's office it was not much warmer. Suddenly, a cheerful person entered the office. It was Scrooge's nephew, Fred. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" Scrooge replied. "Bah! Humbug! Christmas a humbug, Uncle? Oh, surely you don't mean that." "I do," said Scrooge. "If I had my will to work, every idiot that goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and stuffed with a stake of holly through his heart." "Uncle," Fred pleaded. "Nephew," Scrooge sternly replied. "Keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep it in mine." "Keep it? But you don't keep it." "What right have you to be merry anyway? You're poor enough," Fred swiftly replied. "What right have you to be dismal? You're rich enough." Scrooge looked at his nephew in disbelief, and then retorted, "What good has it done you? What good has it ever done anyone? People going about with Merry Christmas on their lips, throwing parties and dinners with money that is supposed to be used to pay the mortgage." Fred replied in a tone which seemed to everyone who was there to witness it, seemed to be a desperate plea to change his old miser of an uncle. "There are many things in this world of which I derive richness from. I have always thought of Christmas time as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, and pleasant time. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe with all of my heart that it has done me good and will continue to do me good, so I say, God bless it." Now, there was another person in Scrooge's counting office, a short and meager but nonetheless merry man. He was Scrooge's clerk, Bob Cratchit. Having heard the passion in Fred's voice, he couldn't help but applaud. This made Scrooge quite cross, and he quickly snapped at Cratchit. "Let me hear one more word out of you, Cratchit, and you shall find yourself celebrating Christmas by losing your situation." Scrooge then turned back to his nephew. "You're quite the speaker, sir. I wonder why it is you do not run for Parliament." Scrooge then sighed with annoyance and said, "Good afternoon, sir." "Please, Uncle, come dine with Clara and I tomorrow for Christmas dinner." Scrooge looked at his nephew, his only living relative, mind you, and became cold as an ice cube. "I will see you in hell first." "Please, Uncle, I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends?" "Good afternoon." Fred, defeated but determined to keep his Christmas spirit, replied, "I am sorry with all of my heart, Uncle, to see you this way, but I will keep my Christmas humor to the last. So Merry Christmas, Uncle." Scrooge replied sternly, "Good afternoon." "And a Happy New Year." "Good afternoon." "Merry Christmas, Bob." "Oh, Merry Christmas, sir." Bob Cratchit replied. As Scrooge's nephew left his uncle's office, he let in 2 more people. This is Scrooge and Marley's, is it not? Scrooge, annoyed that he had to conversate and entertain even more people. It is, Scrooge replied. Do I have the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Jacob Marley has been dead these last 7 years. He died 7 years ago this very night. What is it that you want? The charity man, who we shall refer to this way in this story as Scrooge did not bother in asking him or his associate's name, replied with a slight stutter, Yes. At this festive time of year, we who are better off feel the need to be charitable and seek to raise funds so that those less fortunate may have some food and drink and a warm place to stay for Christmas. Pass the hat for the poor, as it were. Scrooge slightly scoffed and asked, Are there no prisons? Yes, plenty of prisons. And the union workhouses, are those still operational? They are, sir. I wish that I could say that they are not. Ah, good. I was afraid that something had occurred that would stop them in their usefulness. Yes, well, if it's all the same, sir, what might we put you down for? Scrooge paused, then replied, Nothing. You wish to remain anonymous, sir? I wish to be left alone. I do not make myself merry at Christmas, gentlemen, and I cannot afford to make idle people merry either. As it is, my money goes to the establishments I have mentioned. Those who are worse off must go there. The charity man, shocked by what Scrooge had said, replied, Many can't go there. Many would rather die than go there. Well, if they had rather die, then they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. The charity men, realizing they were dealing with a cold and heartless man, bid Scrooge good day and left. Some time had passed, and it was time to close the counting house. Scrooge gathered his belongings and looked at his clerk, meager old Mr. Cratchit. Well, not so old to you and I, but seemingly old to Scrooge, and he said in a grim voice, I suppose you will want the whole day off tomorrow, then? If it's convenient, sir, Bob Cratchit replied. It's not convenient, and it's not fair. I have to pay a whole day's wages for no work, and if I docked you half a crown for it, you would find yourself better off for the trouble of it. It's only once a year, sir. It's a poor excuse to be picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Oh, but I suppose you must have the whole day. Then so be it. But be here all the earlier the next morning. Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas. And with that, Bob Cratchit was happy as a clam and rushed home to his family. Scrooge locked up and walked home in the cold and the dark. Scrooge had arrived at his home and walked to his door. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all in particular about the knocker on the door of Scrooge's house, except that it was very large. And yet Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker not a knocker at all, but Marley's face. Marley's face, with a dismal light about it, looked like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. Suddenly the knocker came to life. Scrooge! This frightened Scrooge, who immediately backed away and hid on his steps. Scrooge then looked up and saw not Marley's face, but the knocker on his door once again. Ha! Bodadash! Scrooge exclaimed. And with that, Scrooge got up, composed himself, and entered his home and closed the door with a bang! The sound resounded through the whole house like thunder. Bang! 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 Every room above and every cask in the wine merchant's cellars below. Bang! 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 Each separate peal of echoes seemed to have a mind of their own. Now Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes, but after the episode at his door, he took extra measures and fastened the door. He then walked across the hall and up the stairs. Up Scrooge went, not caring at all for the dark. Darkness was cheap, and Scrooge liked it. Quite satisfied that he was alone in his apartment, he closed his door to his bedroom and locked himself in. In fact, he double-locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus, secured against surprise, he put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap and sat down before the very low fire to take his gruel. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room. It was with great astonishment and with a strange dread that, as he looked, he saw the bell begin to swing. Soon it rang out loudly. And so did every bell in the house. This was succeeded by a clanking noise. Clank. Deep down below. Clank. As if some person, clank, were dragging a heavy chain. Clank. Over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Clank. The noise worked its way up the stairs. Clank. To the bedroom door. Clank. And stopped with one final clank. Very loud. Yes, very loud indeed. It suddenly came crashing through the door. Clank! And a spectre passed into the room before Scrooge's eyes, and upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up as it cried with a haunting, agonizing moan. Scrooge! Scrooge had heard this voice before, and he had a sneaking suspicion who it was, but he did not want to believe his senses. "What do you want with me?" Scrooge pleaded. "Much," the spectre replied. "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you then?" "In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley." The ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it. "You don't believe in me, do you?" I don't." "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because the littlest thing affects them. You may be a bit of undigested beef, a blot of mustard, yes, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. Oh yes, there's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." The spirit raised a frightful cry and began to howl. "Oh, mercy, dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me? Why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?" Scrooge pleaded with the ghost. "It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit does not go forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house, mark me. In life, my spirit never roamed beyond our money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me." Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly. "I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, and the third upon the next night, when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Now look to see me no more." And with that, the spectre had gone. Scrooge tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable, and being from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or glimpse of the invisible world, or the conversation with the ghost, or the lateness of the hour. He went straight to bed, without undressing, and fell asleep on the instant. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this. I had a lot of fun. This is going to conclude chapter number 1 for A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This took me a couple of days to write out my script, record it, and edit it. I had so much fun doing all of it, and I hope that you guys like it, enjoy it, share it with your friends, listen to it, do whatever, like it, whatever. I'm going to bring back tomorrow I'm going to record chapter 2 when I get back home, and I will try and do the rest of the story when I'm on my Christmas home time. Hopefully I will have it up and running by Christmas Eve so you can listen to it. After all, this is a Christmas Eve story, so you have that to look forward to. Once again, thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you like this video. Share this video with your friends. I will see you later. Thank you.